Oh, hey, my name's Declan Haas. I'm here to talk about the 5 arguments for vegetarianism. Starting off with number 1, distributive justice. This talks about how meat production deprives the world of more resources and more food opportunities. 70% of grain production is used to feed livestock, and 1 pound of meat requires 3 to 21 pounds of grain. So, if we are living in agriculturally powered nations and societies, we should have the power to boycott the luxury of meat eating industries and meat eating diets by switching to a vegetarian diet, a diet that will free opportunities for people in lower income nations and communities to get their hands on more meals. This solution would help a lot of things such as famine and world hunger. And it's also out of moral consideration. So if somebody asks me, Declan, what does an individual effort of switching to a vegetarian diet do for a community that needs food? How is that going to change anything? Well, switching to a vegetarian diet is showing good moral consideration for another human. If I'm switching to a vegetarian diet, I'm giving them a better chance, a better opportunity to get their hands on a meal. By not choosing to consume meat, I'm putting more grain production in the world. And vice versa. If I'm not doing so, it shows poor moral consideration. If I'm eating meat, I am depriving these people of those chances of getting their hands on a meal. Moving on to number 2, it is the argument for environmental harm. A couple of things. Deforestation and grazing are required for livestock farms to be in place. And doing so is producing a lot of CO2 emissions because we're taking out whole forests which are designed to take CO2. Trees absorb CO2, so if we are taking away the trees, CO2 is being released. And we're also interrupting ecosystems and endangering species by putting farms in their natural habitats, such as the elk and the mountain lions, and so on, a lot of species. Number 2, cow shit methane. And this methane goes into the atmosphere. Cow shit is the top methane producer in the entire world, and methane is the worst one of all the greenhouse gases. Methane shit also goes into water system. It's agricultural runoff. So when we have that runoff going to water systems, it makes water system more toxic and less healthy to drink for us and also the animals surrounding these farms. And then last thing relating to the second point, livestock farms use a lot of water. They use way too much water and are making water systems smaller and making it more difficult for animals to find water sources and for us to collect fresh drinking water instead of any other water source. The argument somebody may say is a scenario that talks about how we could be putting a livestock farm on a land that is unsuitable for agriculture. And since we are doing that, we are not depriving the environment of a piece of land. Well, it is prima facie wrong to utilize a healthy piece of land, a part of wildlife, for our own benefit, for our own gain, for profit. And it's a poor moral consideration, poor virtue to manipulate a healthy ecosystem for your own gain. And then the other saying somebody may ask me is, what is it switching to a vegetarian diet individually going to do for the environment? Well, switching to a vegetarian diet, having 3 meals a day instead of having 3 meals of meat per day, 3 meals of vegetarian diet per day, and also switching to a easier mode of transportation like walking and biking instead of driving cars and going on trains and buses is all in all incredibly helpful for the environment. You yourself are helping the environment, and that is of good moral consideration. You're showing good virtue and you're showing compassion for the environment. And if we do this as a whole, we will be helping the environment more and more the more people we get using the same practices. And it starts off with the individual doing his own thing to do his part. Anyways, moving on to number 3 is the argument for sexual politics and feminism. This talks about how patriarchal societies have oppressed animals just like how they have oppressed women. Men and meat are very closely related in terms of patriarchal advertisement and also modern day advertisement. We associate meat with a significance of power. If we eat meat, we get power, we get stronger, and we show dominance. And on the flip side, if women are eating vegetables, they show their weakness, they show their inferior aspects to men. And even today, we see these advertisements showing that if we eat meat, we're going to be stronger. And if we don't eat meat, and if we choose a vegetarian diet, then we are emasculating ourselves, and we are choosing a path of femininity, because that's what a vegetarian diet does to a person. And a vegetarian diet is more closely associated to women than to men. So in order to combat this, we should be switching to a vegetarian diet and embracing feminist perspectives, so that we can attack and change patriarchal attitudes and roles from within. And some may say that gender roles are dogmatically embedded into our culture. Well, we need to moderately change these things. We need to moderately change gender roles and meat production in a way where we can reach a goal at some point. These things aren't something that are going to change immediately. If we get more people to change their behaviors, change their practices, over time, we will at some point get to a point where we want to be. Moving on to number 4 is the argument for the moral consideration of animals. This discusses two perspectives from two philosophers that we've discussed in class, Singer and Reagan. Singer talks about sentientism and takes on a utilitarianism perspective. He talks about how animals are sentient beings, just as we are. We are all sentient beings, and we are all capable of experiencing suffering, and we all have interests in not experiencing suffering. Therefore, we should switch to a vegetarian diet in consideration for all beings who have interest in not being killed and made for meat. And Reagan, on the other side, discusses something very similar. He says that animals have inherent value. They experience pain and pleasure. They are just like us. We experience pain and pleasure, and therefore, similar to Singer, we have an interest of not experiencing pain and pleasure. But from birth, we all have inherent value. We all have value and have a role in ecosystems and societies. So again, we should be choosing a vegetarian diet in consideration for animals' inherent value and in consideration for our inherent value. We should all be treated in the same way at some circumstance. And the one issue is that they don't really discuss what to do if there's roadkill, or what to do if an animal dies of natural cause. Well, if we are talking about roadkill, we, like us people who are going to lengths to protect these animals, we're not going to even consider the interest of consuming roadkill. And same thing with animals who die of natural causes. And on the other side, if you are a meat eater, you are most naturally not going to go out of your way to eat roadkill, to eat animals who have only died of natural causes. And if you're doing so, you're showing poor moral consideration, poor virtue, by going out of your way to prove a point by eating these things that have died in the wild. The last argument is the argument for health. A meat-based diet is not healthier than a vegetarian diet. We humans are not designed to consume meat. We are not carnivores. We are more designed to be mostly herbivores, and a little bit, maybe there might be an argument for an omnivore-based diet. But our digestive tracts and the way how we are constructed, the way we are made, does not allow for successful digestion of carnivorous habits, carnivorous diets. We should be consuming more plants than meat in general. And a meat-based diet is a cause for a lot of diseases that a vegetarian-based diet is not capable of. There's a better risk for diseases like cancer, and there's a lot more risk of diseases like heart disease and liver disease, etc., etc. And somebody may argue that a vegetarian diet doesn't fully give us all the benefits that a meat-based diet may give us. It might give us less protein, might give us less vitamins. Well, that's not true, because a vegan diet gives us all of those things, except for B12, which is a vitamin that we only need 1 microgram per day, and we can go 3 days without consuming any of this vitamin. And even so, these vitamins are found in vegan-based products, such as like vitamin supplements and protein bars, etc. So yeah, the vegan diet takes care of all those things. So in consideration of a better health, a better standing of health, we should be switching to a vegetarian diet for those reasons.